3:12 a.m., July 11, 2025. The Strait of Hormuz was silent, the kind of silence that masks movement. 28 unmanned surface vessels, low profile, black painted, packed with high explosives, surged east out of Iranian territorial waters. They weren't pirate skiffs or civilian crafts. These were kamikaze boats, suicide drones guided by encrypted signals, designed to slip under radar and strike fast at U.S. naval assets. The boats were launched in near-perfect sync, staggered in formations of 4, with wave-splitting hulls and thermal signature dampening. Their target? A U.S. Navy resupply ship codenamed RAV-61, which had been sailing slow and silent through the choke point for 17 hours. It was disguised as a civilian logistics vessel. It carried no missile systems, but inside its hull was a mobile cryogenic transfer unit containing next-gen fuel stabilizers for an operational F-35B fleet aboard the nearby carrier strike group. Without it, flight decks go silent. The convoy was lightly escorted. That was the bait. By 3:17 a.m., the first wave of boats had passed the 20 nautical mile threshold. U.S. satellite KH-12 Sentinel pinged irregular movement patterns. 32 seconds later, a Triton MQ-4C detected the swarm and tagged them Active Threat Cluster. On board USS Daniel Inouye, red alert was declared. Signals relayed to Carrier Strike Group 11, stationed 97 nautical miles south. Rear Admiral Everett spoke one line: "Lock them out of the water." Within 90 seconds, authorization was granted. On RAV-61, the crew secured hatches and sent an encrypted response ping confirming threat proximity. The attack was on. At 3:21 a.m., 2 MQ-9 Reaper drones began vectoring toward the strait from Overwatch. Hellfire targeting engaged. The first 3 suicide boats were vaporized before they reached visual contact. Seconds later, the ocean surface erupted. Rapid precision strikes hit hard, sending debris and fire into the sky. One Reaper pilot whispered, "They came to vanish." 5 boats exploded in under 22 seconds. Meanwhile, Iranian command relays began scrambling in Bandar Abbas. Their operatives aboard disguised fishing trawlers, believed to be feeding signals, attempted to redirect the remaining boats using high-frequency burst relays. But it was too late. U.S. signals intelligence had already triangulated their coordinates. By 3:28 a.m., 6 suicide boats remained. 2 were circling. 4 approached flank angles. 1 triggered its payload 0.6 nautical miles from RAV-61. The blast was felt, not fatal. 1 sailor was injured by falling shrapnel. The ship held. The hull wasn't breached. The message had been delivered. These weren't pirates with AKs. This was a state-sponsored probe, one that crossed the wrong line. 03:32 a.m. The detonation near RAV-61 triggered a direct escalation protocol. There would be no press statement, no Pentagon briefing, no diplomatic channels. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a coordinated strike by unmanned kamikaze vessels launched from sovereign waters against a U.S. flag-bearing asset. Rear Admiral Everett ordered Operation Dustnet into motion. The plan had been modeled months in advance, a full-force rapid maritime interdiction and retaliation package. At 3:36 a.m., 2 FA-18E Super Hornets lifted off from the USS Carl Vinson, climbing rapidly into cloud cover at 24,000 feet. Their orders: full skylock, zero engagement unless fired upon. Beneath them, in the silence of 100-foot depths, the USS North Dakota, a Virginia-class submarine, adjusted its trajectory toward the Iranian coast. Tomahawks were being prepped, but first came ISR, aboard the command decks of USS Mobile Bay and USS Fitzgerald. Airborne early warning aircraft E-2D Hawkeyes deployed to map residual heat trails from the destroyed vessels. One of those trails led to a repurposed civilian barge drifting 18 miles north of Keshem Island, retrofitted with antennas, signal repeaters, and thermal compressors. It wasn't smuggling contraband, it was directing warfare. Reaper 2 locked onto the vessel and broadcast the image back to CENTCOM. Fishing nets on deck, but 6 masked men inside, coordinating through encrypted HF loops. The barge was flagged for capture. Simultaneously, on the surface, RAV-61 regained full mobility. Hull integrity confirmed. A minor fire extinguished on the starboard deck. The injured sailor stabilized. the ship rerouted east at half speed under escort from the destroyer USS Curtis Wilbur, which had diverted course during the strike. But the true focus was now the origin point. At 3:52 a.m., SIGINT intercepted ground-based data transfer bursts from inside Iranian coastal command nodes. The drone control algorithm was active again. A second wave was likely being prepared. That changed everything. Rear Admiral Everett's next order: take the head off the system. USS North Dakota's payload interface confirmed strike capability at 03:58 a.m. Targets uploaded: 2 radio towers, 1 relay uplink, and 1 known drone storage site on Iran's southern naval belt, previously flagged by NSA as Project Zulfikar's unmanned division. Authorization granted. 4 Tomahawk Block Vs were launched from submerged position. Flight time: 7 minutes, 31 seconds. Meanwhile, 3 Growler aircraft, EA-18G, moved into jamming formation, creating a curtain of electronic chaos along the edge of Iranian coastal radars. On radar screens across Bandar Abbas, the sky was suddenly empty, blind. By the time they caught up, the missiles had already landed. At 4:06 a.m., the relay uplink was erased from the map, nothing but ash and shattered aluminum on satellite feed. No official statements came from Tehran, but all known command nodes went dark within minutes. In the CIC aboard USS Carl Vinson, silence fell. Then Admiral Everett said, "That was their warning shot. They just got ours." 4:12 a.m. The aftermath wasn't silence. It was signals. What followed wasn't a firefight, but a surveillance war. Dozens of data channels lit up across the Pacific Command cyber architecture. AI triage tools filtered through terabytes of radio intercepts, thermal trails, sonar pings, and satellite feed compression in real time. The Pentagon wasn't watching explosions. They were watching ripple effects. Aboard USS Arlington, an amphibious transport dock trailing behind the strike group, 3 intelligence officers in a soundproofed operations pod flagged 2 major anomalies. First, a disguised logistics vessel operating under a fake Tanzanian flag had entered the area 11 hours earlier and never registered an outbound signal. Second, a sudden spike in frequency traffic was recorded around Sirak, an Iranian coastal base with ties to past drone tech shipments. The ship was flagged Shadowcraft. Orders were sent: track it, but do not engage. In low orbit, USA-276, a classified surveillance satellite, redirected its imaging array toward Sirak. Image resolution confirmed visible loading equipment, heat signatures from enclosed containers, and 3 moving signal domes on the rear deck, a telltale sign of uplink relay testing. At 4:29 a.m., one of the domes powered up. A communications ping went live toward a commercial satellite orbiting in the Ku-band. It was camouflaged, but US SIGINT cracked it. A Stingray UAV hovered silently overhead, relaying thermal data to USS Fitzgerald. The results? Clear signs of personnel movement around a suspected hardline drone launching site. There was no doubt now, the earlier Kamikaze boats were not a standalone attack. They were a field test. Iran was testing automated unmanned swarms against US Navy response protocols, and they failed. But failure didn't mean retreat, it meant recalibration. Back in the carrier war room, Rear Admiral Everett issued Phase 3, disrupt and observe. No more retaliation, no more strikes. Now it was time to watch them unravel. 4 MQ-9 Reapers remained on overwatch, 2 above the coast, 2 tailing the Shadowcraft. Meanwhile, a specialized SIGINT team aboard the USS America compiled metadata from the entire 3-hour engagement. Their goal? Trace command latency. How fast were the drones reacting? How long did they take to redirect? The answer was alarming: 2.6 seconds. That level of tactical AI control implied hardware-level integration, the kind you only get from state-sponsored R&D. This wasn't pirates with bomb boats. This was centralized drone warfare testing. Every second of this night, from the blast to the jamming to the shadow ship, told the same story. The next war at sea won't begin with missiles. It'll begin with code. 05:04 a.m. The Strait of Hormuz calmed. The sun crept into view over the horizon. Civilian tankers resumed their shipping routes. The RAV-61 convoy held position 12 nautical miles east of its reroute. No further threats detected. But the data never stopped. Across the CIC, combat information centers of 3 U.S. warships, updated movement plots revealed the full spread of Iranian maritime activity overnight. 2 speedboats abandoned near Keshem, 1 relay barge abandoned near Jask, coastal bases cold, command centers offline. The message had been received. Loud, final, total. Rear Admiral Everett delivered his after-action message in 1 sentence. "We are not negotiating with swarm warfare." U.S. military social media remained silent. No press conferences, but in defense circles, the operation's name had already started circulating. Dust net. Not a military victory, a military precedent. Within 36 hours, satellite footage leaked online. Independent analysts cross-confirmed the signatures of Tomahawk impacts near Sirak. They labeled it a preemptive counter-drone doctrine. But for those inside the chain of command, it was much simpler. The U.S. didn't just repel an attack, it erased the blueprint. It invalidated the experiment. It told every watching nation, try your new tech on American hardware, and we'll uninstall your ambition permanently. In Congress, briefings were classified, but senior defense officials stated off-record that a second wave of suicide drones was highly likely, but shut down at the source. In the Gulf, carrier operations resumed with layered ISR support. MQs flew without pause. Signals were filtered hourly. Undersea drones ran anti-infiltration patrols. What began at 3:12 a.m. as a surprise has now become doctrine. Preemptive visibility, autonomous interception, no tolerance retaliatory posture. No sailors died, no convoys lost, no war started, but a line was drawn. And it wasn't with ink or radio calls. It was written in code, jet fuel, and crushed hulls. There would be no second attack, because the U.S. Navy doesn't issue warnings, it issues outcomes.